Confirmation of notice, the agenda was properly and duly, or the meeting was properly noticed. Approval of the agenda, are there any amendments? We have two. The first one is we're going to amend to add the general maintenance, or the general manager's maintenance items that she needs approval for. That will be under new business, listed as A. Flood insurance policy will be listed as B. Beach house usage policy will be C. Late fees and finance charges will be D, and we are adding another late charge item dealing with a resident on Masters Boulevard. That will be listed as E, and then F will be the withdrawal of petition for arbitration. Any questions? Can I give a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the minutes.
No, to approve the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda. As amended.
Where's she from?
Orlando.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, approval of the minutes from the July 29, 2015 special board meeting. Were there any changes that needed to be made? No? Okay, so motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes of June the 11th to 13th need to be approved. They were out on the website.
Do we have those minutes for the June meetings?
I looked and did not see them. I was gonna wait until, I think Dan had been out of town, and I was waiting to talk to him, but Beth was out of town, and I was waiting for her to email me back. So those ended up being at another meeting.
Yeah, she did send them, didn't she?
I had it received.
Okay.
Can we get those before Thursday, and then we can approve those at the Thursday's meeting? All right, so now we're going to move on to general manager's report.
Okay, I'm just gonna make it really quick. We had a couple items from the last meeting. The big one was the upgrade for the software. There was a request to make sure that the security was reviewed for that, as far as the network, and also for any additional upgrade costs that may be incurred. We got those answers back. There are no additional upgrade fees throughout the life of the contract. The security was approved by the board as acceptable for what we're using it at. It also came in less cost to us than discussed at the last meeting. We are currently paying $135 a month for it. To do the upgrade, it's going to be $125 a month for 5 users. We had stated $1,600 setup cost. We confused that with a termination cancellation cost. The setup cost is actually $599.99. So we'll be under what was discussed at that last meeting. On our end, we completed our first quarter OSHA safety training when we went over protocol for the facility for storms, wind, rain, lightning. We also went over our life safety equipment. As you guys know, we have the AED equipment here, and are reviewing everyone's first aid training. So everyone is compliant with the exception of one right now. Our next meeting will be the hurricane preparedness meeting. We are looking at a new structure for maintenance. We're going to put that before the board, but just so everyone knows, my idea is to kind of look at maybe an internal and external structure for what we have. There's a lot of obviously external lawn maintenance and things like that that go on, and for me, I feel like some of the internal items kind of get neglected or pushed off, and we need to look at the place as a whole. So we're going to restructure that and kind of see what we can do to kind of really wrap the whole thing in. So we're looking at a lot of that stuff. Other than that, we've been really busy going through policies and procedures and things like that, so we've been busy.
Really, I have to just give a shout out. I just want to give a shout out to April. She's been really she's been working hard, helping the board members get up to speed. We are going through policies, we're going through contracts, it's taking some time, but she has worked very hard, as has the entire staff. Whenever, I can't speak for the other board members, but I know that when I've had any questions, they have readily been available to answer those questions. So we are going to go through the policies one by one, we're going through contracts one by one. I know that things are not going to happen as quickly as everybody would like them to, but we are going to make steady progress in bringing everything in line with the covenants, and we are going to take on the task, the daunting task of updating the covenants. So we will need everyone's support once that begins, because as you know, we need to get a majority vote to amend the covenants. But I think it's about time that we really do begin that process to bring them into the 21st century. So thank you for your help. All right, so the officers' reports, I'll start with mine. Again, I'd just like to thank everybody for their support and with the new board. We are going to be starting the budget process quite soon, so we have some dates, and these dates will be posted for the association's purview. On August 25th, Rhonda and April are going to be completing a preliminary review of the 2014 actuals, and then January through July 2015 actual and upcoming projects, highlighting the difference between the two. On September 3rd, Rhonda and April are going to meet with Deanne and I for a preliminary budget, just a review of the preliminary budget. September 8th, the post-preliminary for members will take place, and it will be available at the regular board meeting on September 8th, so the association will have a good week to review that. The member budget workshop will be at 6 o'clock on September 15th. So the preliminary budget will be posted at the September 8th regular meeting, and the public workshop will be the following Tuesday on the 15th. So the association will have a good week to review the proposed budget. On September 17th, there will be a board budget workshop at 5 p.m. and then on September 22nd, the board budget approval meeting at 6 p.m. So we will have these dates posted, and that is when we will finalize our 2016 budget. All right, I wanted to let the association know of the decision that I had made, because I thought it was the right decision in consultation with the general manager and the accounting department. I authorized the payment of $17,718.87, I believe, to First Services for vacation time. What happened is at the end, the FSR had a bucket system. We can debate the merits of a bucket system until the cows come home. That was the system of vacation that they had. So what a bucket system is on a person's anniversary date, say February 2nd, that person gets their entire 4 weeks at that point. So they can take the 4 weeks from February 2nd. I'm going to use Rhonda as an example. She has given me permission to use her. She is the accountant. So on February 2nd, she received the 4 weeks, which she's allotted for the whole year. She used 8 hours prior to April 3rd. So FSR paid out 72 hours is what they paid. So leave for her. And they did this across the board. So the previous board made a decision to pay all but the $17,000 because the employees who are still working, it was understood that they were accruing vacation under simple HR. That is not the case. So there's no double dipping. On paper, it looks as if they are. But Rhonda has been in communication with Julia from Simple HR stating that they are going to zero out the employees who are here now, so they are not double dipping. So for example, Rhonda was paid for the 72 hours of leave that she had not taken. She still has to take 72 hours of vacation time before her anniversary date of February of next year. She cannot be paid for that 72 hours. And she is also not receiving any vacation time with Simple HR. It does not begin accruing with Simple HR until February of next year. And that is the case with all the employees. So if you look at their pay records, which we should not be doing because it's not our information, it will look on paper as if they are accruing time with Simple HR. That is not the case. Rhonda has been in contact with Julia again, sending emails so that she knows that the employees who were paid vacation, they need to be zeroed out and then reset once they hit their anniversary date. Now that date's different for each employee, okay? So because that was paid out by FSR, I thought it was the right thing to do to reimburse them for the full amount because that went to the employees. It didn't come to us, it didn't go to them, it was something that they paid in agreement with their, their agreement with the employees based on the system that they had. So the total that was paid was $44,960.70. And so we are clean with regards to FSR. We don't owe them anything that zeroes out the balance.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
In FSR's statement of their policy, which did change, it said there is no carryover on the PTO days and no payout for PTO days. I believe the 17,000 included the PTO days. I also, what about the employees that do not work for Holly by the Sea? Because in other words, we have paid for FSR employees their future vacation, just so that the members completely understand what's happened.
We understand what happened here, Mrs. Crawford.
The amount due for an invoice that was dated April 10th for the 2-week pay period ending April 3rd was $44,960.70. The estimated payroll based on timesheets at the end of the day on April 3rd, 2015 is submitted to FR along with the accrued vacation payouts based on their bucket system. A check was cut for $27,241.83 for the payroll portion of the invoice. The remaining balance of $17,718.87 was for the accrued payroll for the 13 full-time employees that were on staff at Holly by the Sea as of April 3rd. Of the 13 full-time employees in the payout, 2 were not offered a job with the transition, 2 were offered a job but chose to not return, 2 accepted positions but left Holly by the Sea within 30 days, and 7 have continued employment. Each one of those individuals, their vacation time was paid out. So that $17,000 covered that.
Can I ask one other question? If an employee of her service had resigned the day after their anniversary date, would they have had their future year's vacation time paid to them?
According to Rhonda, they were paid the vacation time as of April 3rd that was owed to them. That's what they were paid. And as I just said,
Point of order.
Two were not offered a job with the transition. 2 were offered a job but chose not to return. 2 accepted positions but left Holly by the Sea within 30 days, and 7 continued employment. So the $27,241 was for the payroll portion, and the $17,718.87 was for the accrued payroll for the 13 full-time employees that were on staff at Holly by the Sea as of April 3rd, 2015.
Point of order.
Yes.
This is your report.
Yes,
This
it
is not
is.
a question time.
I understand that, Tim, but I do not mind to ask questions. That's fine. Thank you. Okay, so that is why I decided to pay that 17, or to authorize the payment of those funds. Okay. With respect to the Holly by the Sea being a private association, this is a private association. I know policies have been approved in the past that have put us possibly in the category of not being private. We are going through these policies one by one to ensure that they align with the covenants. This is going to mean that some of you are not going to like them, because we are going to have to say no to certain public opening of a facility, whether it be the swim team, the tennis team, the beach house, but this is a private facility. So if somebody comes here that is a non-member, they have to come here under a guest pass. Each person is allowed 30 guest passes a year. Once that's been exhausted, that's been exhausted. Again, it's a private facility, and although past policies were well intended, we as a board have an obligation to protect the assets of this association, and so we are going through these policies to ensure that they align with the covenants and that this is a private association. One of them tonight is the beach house usage policy. So I imagine we'll have a spirited conversation with that. All committees must be duly noted. A workshop cannot be cited as a means to get around this. If there is a committee that that the board has approved, when that committee meets, they have to notice the meeting and they have to keep minutes. Okay? Any questions on that?
Thank you.
Okay, and you're welcome. And the new website information, I don't know if you saw it by the window here, but we do have the new website information, so please take one or give it to your neighbors or pass it around so people are aware of that, the new website and how it works. All right, that concludes my reports. Vice President Ron Danner, do you have anything to report?
Frank is not going to be here tonight for the engineering committee report. So basically, my report is going to be some follow-up on the situation with Fabre Engineering, DEP, and the county. There has been, as most of you know, we got an RAI, which is a request for additional information from DEP upon our application for a permit. There are quite a number of items that need to be addressed, both through some additional engineering work, some construction work, and some stormwater calculations. I'm not going to run down this whole list of engineering speak because you'd be nodding off by the time we get there. But basically, Frank talked to Fabre, and some of the items that the county and DEP asked for were somewhat unexpected. So, pardon me. So we're going to have to be working on that. Just a few of the items, for instance, this northernmost pond that's adjacent to the tennis courts here is used to backflush the pool. But one of the things you can't do is include that in your stormwater total if you're backflushing water to that pool. And the county is concerned, as am I, and have been all along, that some of these ponds show overflows, yet there is not a hardened overflow for that water, which would tend for the berm of the pond to erode out and blow out like happened down below. Another thing is that lower pond is going to have to be armored. It's going to have to be solidified in order to avoid what's happened in the past. So their modeling is going to have to be reconstructed somewhat. And until we get these permits, then we can't do anything with this parking lot. And I'm going to have to correct Fabre on this because they say they understand that if the footprint and elevations for the parking lot do not change, then it will not require another permit. That is true. However, if we go down to bare soil, which means if we go down to the base, which we're going to have to do, it's going to have to be permitted. But our intention is to include that in the permit application. So once these applications are approved, then we can move forward on that. And we're also going to ask Fabre, since we have him on board, they have all the information to do the parking lot design for us while we're at it. We haven't come up with a scope of work or cost analysis yet. And other than that, 3 of us had the opportunity to attend board certification course last Friday. So we're trying to gain as much knowledge as we can up front, and there will be another training that we'll participate in September, and all 4 of us will do that then. So that's my report. Thank you.
Secretary? I have nothing to report.
Treasurer?
As of right now, our operating funds, we have $1,792,521. In our operating cash that we have available, we have $836,520, which is available. Our reserves are $629,576, and in our capital improvement, we have $318,264.
Is that the total of the reserves and then the capital, or is that non-capital reserves and capital?
The way I was explained it is the reserves and capital improvement, but it should go.
Total reserves and the capital?
Well, that's all she gave me today. I can go back and clarify with her.
Can you get that to us by Thursday?
I will.
Thank you. Okay, on to the committee reports. Who is here from the Long Range Committee?
Beth Welcher, 1948 Resort Street. Long Range Planning Committee hasn't had a meeting. We were waiting until the board got situated. There are 3 individuals that were going to be appointed by you guys tonight, I hope. Other than that, I'm hoping to have a meeting probably next week sometime, and I'll post that as required.
And who do you have in mind?
I've had 3 volunteers, John Longden, Andrew Adams, and Sammy Maddox.
Are any of them here?
Andrew couldn't be here, he's out of town.
Sammy's
here. Sammy is here, and John's out of town, but they both said that they'd be willing to serve.
Okay. Sammy, are you sure? It's actually quite fun. All right, so I make a motion to appoint John Longden, Sammy Maddox, and Andrew Adams to the Long Range Planning Committee.
Second.
Oh, see? I made a mistake. I make a motion to move this to Thursday for approval.
Well, the items that were scheduled for extension to Thursday were just items 8 and 9. So if you want to go ahead and do it today, we can knock it out.
All right, so I make the motion to approve John Longden, Sammy Maddox, and Andrew Adams to the Long Range Planning Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also, were you going to resign, or would you like to stay on the committee?
I'll continue, but I won't have a voting interest.
Okay.
Just, if it's okay.
That's fine with me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Violation Appeals Committee, Kelly?
Good afternoon. First, congratulations to the new board members. Long road ahead of you.
Speak up.
So congratulations to the new board members. You have a long road ahead of you. The only thing I have to report is since 2 of my back members are now board members, they have de facto resigned from the back. Therefore, we're looking for a couple new members. I moved the quarterly meeting to the 13th, which usually is held at the end of July. But because of the whole election process and stuff, I wanted to make sure that we had a meeting right after the new board was seated. And now that I lost 2 members, we're looking for 2 new back members. So if you know anybody who's a good candidate, we have a meeting on Thursday, 13th at 7:30 in the 21 room. I have sent the agenda. I don't see it posted out on the board, but I know it's on the webpage.
Do you have anybody in mind who can serve on that committee?
There's one person that was brought up to me. I don't have her name with me, but hopefully meet her on Thursday, and then we'll bring it up at the next board meeting.
Will she be here Thursday? If she's here Thursday, then we can.
It'll be after your meeting. Yeah.
Your meeting's at 7:30. It will immediately follow the board meeting.
Correct. But,
Do you have enough members to hold a meeting, to hold a forum?
Yes, we have enough members to hold a meeting. We just need some fresh meat.
That sounds so inviting. You are now Shark Bait. Come to the.
If anybody's interested in being on the back, please come see me. It's the Violation Appeal Committee. I'll tell you what we do, what we don't do, and dispel all the myths.
Thank you, Kelly. Are there any other committee members here? No? All right, we're going to move on to unfinished business then. We'll begin with the Finance Committee and budget process. We left off with this, we had not decided if we were going to have a Finance Committee, so I'll open it up to the board for their thoughts.
I think the process that was described as far as the timeline and just using a workshop would be sufficient to take care of the needs of the association.
I think I agree with that. even though the finance committee was originally my idea.
Can you speak in your mic?
Speaking to Mike, right?
Even though the finance committee was originally my idea, I think, the process, that was outlined, by April seems to have worked in the past, and, that seems a little more efficient perhaps.
We don't really care what you have to say, that's why it's. The way it was explained based on April is, the way this is outlined, I do agree that we don't necessarily need a finance committee. I know that there has been a finance committee in the past, and I think that does make people feel included, but with these meetings, I think the membership has ample opportunity to provide input at any step and within this process. So I am inclined to not support a finance committee. I think it would just add to an already pretty busy schedule with regards to getting a budget, and that's what I think. Deanne, Alex?
One thing I was going to say, last year when we did the budget, we included as income many things that, because of these changes in policy, for example, the beach house, are obviously going to be a lot smaller this year. For example, the income from the programs may vary, and I don't want to go into detail of this, but I think we'll see in the beach house. You know, we count a lot of income. If, for example, we're going to say that swimming lessons will only be confined to members and their guests and not open, and I just picked that one, and we don't open them up as they are now to people who are not members, we're going to see a big decrease in revenue. This may also affect the cost of these programs, but certainly the income. For the beach house, I could see if this policy goes through, it would tremendously affect the income. So in just about every area, if we based it on last year, the way we did last year, I think we are going to overstate income grossly.
Well, from my understanding, you and Rhonda are going to look at the 2014 numbers, the projected, what was projected, and then the actual numbers, what was budgeted, and the actual numbers, and you're going to do the same in forecasting for 2016.
Right, so you take your actual numbers from year end 2014, you take your January to July actual numbers, and then you take your budgets that were set for those, and you look at that as far as your trends goes. And usually the trends, you go back, not just 2014, we'll be looking 2012, 2013, 2014, see how that lines up with 2015, and then make the adjustments for what we think for upcoming projects and stuff for 2016. And the changes that we think are coming, the reserve items that should be coming up and things like that.
But
And your point is that with the usage policy changing today, that could have.
yeah, to look historically has less impact than, you know, if you're going to really limit how you're going to rent out the beach house, the income's going to be a lot less. So you can't go back to the times when, you know, it is like it is. You can't even look at the first 6 months of the year. You know, when people can only invite members or the guests, you know, they're not going to be having weddings and things like that there. This is very prohibitive. So your income, therefore, I would say would be a lot less.
Yeah, well, no,
And maybe that kind of thing shouldn't even really be in the budget.
Right. We need to look at all that. I mean, and some of those things, like the programs that are a wash almost, some of them are, some of them aren't, you know, like the tennis and things like that. So some of them are a wash and some of them aren't. We'll just have to line item, like I said, me and her are just going to sit down and go through and say, we really think we need to look at these categories. These are things that we need to bring to the board to look at and to review. So it's really just an assessment on our part. We're not making the budget. We're going through and giving our assessment with my accounting background and hers to bring to the board for them to review it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not arguing over the way you're doing it, but what I'm saying is that there will be a huge paradigm shift. So you would be doing it in the same way it was done in previous years.
Well, with knowing that it's changing, I mean, you just
Right.
have to guess, a budget is an estimate, really, anyway.
And there's 5 meetings in which to ensure that those changes are accounted for, to include when the board meets with Rhonda and the general manager during this budget process to ensure that those changes that you're speaking of are accounted for. Right.
Just a housekeeping item on this. Are we going to be making any motions at this meeting, or will they be held until the next meeting?
All motions will be held to the next meeting. So, do we want to move the discussion or to vote on the finance committee, on the formation of the finance committee for Thursday?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, it's under those points of unfinished business that,
If I understood,
have a discussion.
if I understood the sentiment, we're not going to vote to create one, so that it would not need to be moved to Thursday because it's a dead issue.
Yeah, it was disbanded, so if you do nothing, you don't have a plan.
So there will be no moving the finance committee to Thursday because no action will be taken. All right, so Kevin, you got this next one. It was unfinished business, the method of returning to a staggered board term.
Yes, I took into account some of the discussion points that were brought up at the last meeting and basically incorporated in there, continuing similar to what was in the first board meeting and how the meetings or how the directors would be staggered, with the lowest number of votes director being the one who serves the 1-year term. I've added a provision in here that should another one of the board members resign during this first year, that, in this instance it would be Deanne, would have the opportunity to assume their 2-year position to finish out that term, and then the appointed board member to replace would then just go to the next election.
Do you want to read it in its entirety?
Yes, I can. The policy, the board members from the 2015 election with the fewest number of votes will serve a 1-year term. However, should another board member who is serving a 2-year term resign from the board, then the member serving the 1-year term will have the option to complete the 2-year term with the replacement board member serving until the next election. And I've also included this policy will just sunset at the next election and go away. So this is just a one-time shot, just so the board can say how, just from the accounting standpoint and the DVPR and other paperwork that has to be filed with the state, so they know the terms of the directors.
So you're just zeroing it out and starting a new.
So at the next election, then this will just go away. And if there's a situation that arises in the future, then they'll have the opportunity to have it being necessary.
Beth Walter, 1948 Resort Street. As far as DBPR goes, you can just tell them that it's a 2-year term. They don't really care. So you may be looking into this a little too deeply. I mean, she could still be a 2-year term as far as DBPR comes, but then when it comes time for our election in July, that's when it would be decided who would be staying and who wouldn't.
I think this just puts it in to works now, so come next year, it's already decided, we're not having to deal with that issue. So I think it's a policy that is just put in place now, and of course, at the, next year's election, it sunsets, as you said. And then if there's an issue with regard to unstaggered terms, then it's for future boards to decide. Any further discussion? Want to move this to Thursday for action?
Need a motion to do that, please?
Give us a second there, Ted.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Should we get a motion to move this to Thursday?
So moved.
All right, the next issue is the vehicle for the architectural staff. It was brought to our attention that obviously this has been an issue that needs to be addressed, and the architectural staff needs vehicles, and a car does not work. So I asked April what the budget was, is $8,000. I did not account for the turn-in of the vehicle that they have now because it doesn't work, so it doesn't turn over. So it doesn't really matter what the Blue Book value on the internet says, because no one's going to pay $2,400 for a car that won't even crank. So I said, okay, what's the budget? And I called the Honda dealership in Fort Walton and spoke with Chris, and I told him what we needed. He had a Toyota Tacoma that had come in, and then he put me in touch with Seth from Navarre Auto, who has a Ford Explorer Sports Track. So the total for the Toyota Tacoma is $7,021.93. There is it's a standard. It's a truck, obviously. Stick shift is in decent condition. It's got 93,000 miles. It is a 2003. I'm sorry, it's got 94,000 miles. 2003. The air conditioning does work. It has manual manual windows, which I know that was an issue, and it's also a standard. The Ford Explorer, he can sell to us for $7,977. Now, when I told him that the budget was $8,000, I told them that was everything, tag, tax, everything, not to exceed $8,000. Now, we have the tag that we can transfer, but $8,000 was the most, not they're going to sell it to us for $8,000 and then we pay all the extra. It was, this is as much as what you're getting. So the cost for the Ford was $7,050 plus your tag, tax, and out the door would be $79.77. It has a bed extender because it's a Ford Explorer track. Then it's got the extended cab. I hope I'm saying this right. So the bed is shorter, but if you put the tailgate down, it has this extender that kind of comes over, so you can put things in the bed without them sliding out. All the men are like, yeah, we know what you're talking about. So feel free to correct my verbiage.
Is it automatic or
standard? It is automatic. The AC works, and for people Shanko in the back, the windows are automatic. So I spoke to the girls in the architectural office, and I said, which would you prefer? And both said that they do know how to drive the standard, but they would prefer the automatic. It just makes it easier for them when they're driving and they're making notes, and also the windows being automatic makes it easier for them as well. But they both have the bed, which is what they said that they needed. So now with the old vehicle, we can decide what to do with that one at a later date. So those are the two vehicles. Again, it was within a week, so.
Mileage of the Explorer?
Oh, pardon, the mileage is 123,000. I'm sorry, 120,000, 120,908 miles. And it's a 2002. And it is in good shape. I mean, I looked at it today, and it's in really good shape. It's a nice looking truck. So I don't know much about Fords, Explorer, sports tracks, but it's a one owner. The Toyota Tacoma is a 3-owner vehicle. So there's some difference.
How much was the Toyota?
The Toyota Tacoma out the door was $7,021.93. Now there is a crack in the windshield. I know that in the state of Florida the insurance covers that. I did ask him, if it's covered if we purchased it and it's cracked. I wasn't sure about that, so he was going to check on that. So.
Are these used as is or used
No,
certified?
they're used as is.
So we would have a mechanic that would assume, check them out for it.
Yes. Any other questions with regards to the vehicles?
Just some dumb questions. How many miles is the Ford Focus we have now?
It doesn't work.
How many miles?
I don't know how many miles is on it.
Have we gotten more than one opinion on how much it's going to cost to fix?
There was this discussion a couple of months back at the board, and from my recollection, and Alex can correct me, is the engine's shot. So to replace an engine,
It's less than $8,000.
well, that
Lot less
they
than
need a
$8,000.
truck. The truck is something that they can use a little better than a car.
No, I think the point was that the trade-in was $2,400 on it, and the cost to repair it was $3,800. So I think that was the discussion that we had, is you're gonna pay the repair for a car that,
So we're going to
not
pay
working.
$5,000 for $100,000, 100 mile vehicle?
Well, I think that the investment is that this is a vehicle that they need, and it's something that is conducive to their work, And also with the mileage, I think that it's something that will last, as long as the maintenance is done on it, the oil is changed and it's kept up. I don't see why it wouldn't last for quite a while.
Is this also a reserve item that was due for replacement this year, I believe?
It's actually due at the beginning of 2016.
16.
Yes.
So we may need to budget a little better for reserve items for vehicles.
I have just a question. I understand that they need the truck, but because we already have two that the association owns, is it not feasible that we could let them use one of the ones that we have when our maintenance is not using it, and still find a cheaper vehicle that they could get back and forth when they don't need a truck, just to save us some money?
I'll tell you why that's not gonna work, and Jackie's here, so she could probably tell you, but the vehicles are used for two different things, and one is used to pull equipment, and the other one has to be used for the other set of equipment we have. So if we're doing boat ramps and ponds and back and all this kind of stuff, they're using them for different things, and if we were having to coordinate and schedule, the girls go out every single day.
Yep.
So if anybody needs to go to the store for something maintenance-wise, or if we are cutting on our schedule, then there's a conflict for the use of that. And they've had that conflict since the trucks have been gone, trying to coordinate being back here so they can leave and go, and us trying to reschedule projects based on that. It's just, they use them, and they use them every day.
Is there a reason we can't look for a station wagon or something? I mean, I'm trying to figure out the truck, what it is exactly they need a truck for. If we could have a hatchback that they can put something in that may be cheaper with lower miles, would that work for them?
The way it was explained to me is the truck is preferable to a vehicle because it allows them, if they've got signs or anything that they need to toss in the back, they're not having to open the hatch, open the door. It makes
They pick up trash.
Which makes it much
I'm
quicker.
just asking questions that I think others would probably want to know.
Yeah, they pick up trash and all kinds of stuff. She said that a lot of that smell is left in the car, from the things that they do, and the dirt and the signs and bigger things like, I'm sure you guys remember that big TV that was thrown into the woods and moved farther into the woods that had to get picked up. Wouldn't even fit in the back of that little Ford Focus. So it made it have to go pick that one up.
Well, and a sport track essentially is an explorer with a pickup.
Right. Yeah.
So it could be useful.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Motion to move this to Thursday. Any objection?
Real quick, sorry about that, if we give Joe Campbell briefly street. I'm just a little concerned, I'm okay with it if we check the Kelly Blue Book or something, but we've told them we have $8,000 to spend, and they're $3 shy of $8,000. So it doesn't
Well,
match the Blue
that
Book.
includes the tag.
Understood.
No, we have more than right at 8,000. I believe it's 8,070
But the point being,
or 8,000.
you've looked at the mileage and the vehicle and Kelly Blue Book or something, Consumer Report just says we're getting a decent value coming. I don't mind 120,000 cars last 200,000 these days, but as long as
I'll do that before Thursday.
just,
That's one of the joys of having a split meeting is that questions like that we can follow up.
I'm looking for a new car, that's why I'm focused on this.
Any car?
Got to chip it off that.
All it is.
What's the plan to do with the old car?
Well, based on conversations at Home Depot, we can donate it, or we can, I don't know if we can have it as a write-off, but we could try to sell it as is. I'm not quite sure.
You can get 300 for it just for scrap.
Yeah.
I may hate myself for this, but I'm gonna say something.
Okay.
You may hate me because I'm gonna
We
fix
won't
it.
hate you for it.
Okay,
Now, you give me your full name.
Jacqueline Goble, 2028 Colby Court, it is Jacqueline.
I like that name.
That Ford Focus has about 45,000 miles on it. When I bought it 6 years ago maybe, it had 35,000 miles on it and it was running like a top. Now I talked to Daryl at 87 Garage yesterday and asked him about this. I know that Ford Focus was taken to 98 mechanic or something, Chris, I don't know. We used Daryl for years and years and years. We don't use him anymore, I'm not here. But he told me, and this maybe isn't true, because he told me that Chris told him he was putting a new engine in it for $2,500. I just heard you say 3,800.
there were more things wrong with it than just the engine.
Well, here's what Daryl told me. He said, you know, he could be wrong. He said, Chris is a good mechanic, but he said the Ford Focus like that has a history of the engine itself, like coming loose from the engine compartment or something. And he said, you can literally, when you turn it on, it just shakes so bad you think the engine's blown. Maybe we could just think about, before we trash this little car, I mean, you can, obviously you can trade it in if the engine's not blown, or you can sell it outright. It'd be better than saying, let's donate it, and somebody should get that if it's just the engine came loose. I don't know anything about engines and cars, but it's a possibility, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we should, even if we move forward with this, then we should reassess it and see.
Yeah.
The reason why we don't take it to 87 is a paperwork issue.
W-9, I know.
Yes. So we can't, I mean, Rhonda would kill me if I took it down there. And, you know, the IRS and the audits and the state.
Yeah.
So that's why we're taking it there, but I think even if they move forward with this before we, you know, throw it off the cliff, yeah, we should take it and see if we can get it reassessed for that.
Yeah, because when I left and we did routine maintenance on everything, it should be down in the maintenance building in a folder under Holly by the Sea vehicles. The oil was checked every month, the oil was changed, and it was running really good. So I don't know what happened. I know one of the girls told me, Shelby told me that one day when she took it out, it just sounded horrible. And she told one of the maintenance men, and he said, no, it's fine. And then I think the next time is when it I don't know if it wouldn't start or if it was
No,
rattling
they were
or
on
what.
98 and it just puttered back.
And they made it back,
yeah.
yeah. So, I don't know, it's just something to look into before you just, you know, trash it.
So if we could get it running, then we could sell it and
At
offset
least-
the cost
yeah,
for the truck.
yeah.
Because it just, and I'm not trying to stick with the truck, but the girls really seem
Or trade it, yeah.
to want the truck, that it would just be, a truck would work out much better for them than a vehicle, but if we can get it running and get it in good working condition to sell it, that
Yeah.
would be great.
Yeah.
To offset the cost of the truck.
True, and something else to keep in mind, mowing season, it's gonna start to taper off, and so 3 trucks, I mean, you do what you want, but I used to bring the truck up here all the time for the girls in the architectural department when they needed it. So, just another thought, like, you know, you just don't have to jump into it if you don't want to. And what I did when I bought that Ford Focus was I called Frontier Motors. I said, I need a low mileage vehicle, and Frontier Motors is such a good place. I bought my car there. She called me one day, and she said, you need to get down here now, because some old man just died, and his son just came in and said, my dad's car is, I hear you buy cars. That's why we got that, and it was a really good deal for $35,000. So it's just something to think about. It's just history on the vehicles and stuff, you know.
3,500.
What did I say?
3,500, you said 35,000.
Good deal, wasn't it?
Holly by the Sea did.
Right, by the
So we'll
sea.
get the trucks to Thursday, and then tomorrow we can find out as much as we can, obviously with the money on the trucks and then with the car, what we can do with the car.
Scott Schellenbarger. I have the Kelly Blue Book right here. The suggested retail price on a 2002 Ford Explorer Sport Track with 135,000 miles is $7,642. That's the suggested retail. The average price range is $5,921 to $8,012. So if it's a $7,000 truck plus $7,700 in taxes and all that, they're selling it below what the suggested retail for our zip code would be. So it's not a terrible deal.
Yeah, and we can get that, we can put that out for Thursdays. But it is important to find out what we can do with the car to offset the cost of the truck. All right, so that'll be moved to Thursday. All right, moving on to new business. The first item is the general manager's maintenance item list. You want to discuss this briefly?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to talk loud. I just have a couple things. As you guys know, around here, I think everything's just getting older. So we have a couple things that came up. Air hockey table, we were having an electrical issue with it, and it's been out of order for a couple of weeks. We, to have a mechanic come in and look at it. We had a guy who does some electrical stuff, and he came and he said, really, it's just shot, it's been used. We try to rewire it. Again, it's one of those things, I have to find out how old it is, but, that's something that is out of order that we need to look at replacing if it's not repairable. The air hockey table, the foosball table that we have as well, all of the legs, 2 of the legs are broken. They've been piecemeal together. They're still piecemeal together right now so that it doesn't wobble. It's not a safety issue. All the stuff, the trimming is coming off. One of the levers on one side is broken and another one. So just to replace some of the things that are, their life expectancy is gone. We have the drinking fountains, one in the gym and the one out here. We keep getting, the people, when they push the buttons for the water to come out, they keep pushing them in and breaking them off. Those have been here, I think, since the building,
No,
since they were put in. Are they, how old are they?
the one in the aerobics room,
Yes.
that's pretty new. We just put that in about 4 years ago, I think, April.
Okay, Rhonda told me 9. So, Rhonda.
No, Ron's wrong.
Okay. Well, we were looking at, we were bringing up some different things. If we were going to upgrade anything, the issue that we have with the water fountains isn't just that they're pushing it and breaking the buttons, it's that the water doesn't, pressure doesn't come up. People are bringing water bottles. They can't get their water bottle under there. The difference in buying a new one to buying one where it's an actual, with a water bottle dispenser is $200 difference in those. So I'll have all that stuff up there for us to talk about and look at. But we're looking at, these here are $700 and the other ones are $900. So that's the difference in the cost from the standard that we have. I think the complaint was coming in, especially with the people who use the gym a lot, is that they can't fill up their water bottles, the buttons never work, the pipe in there, I think we have a plumbing issue maybe in the bottom of it, we had to look. I don't know that the pipe or the plumbing has ever been changed in there, from what the plumber said. So we'll have to look at that, but we had a couple of leaks and he had to come in and replace the pipe on the bottom. So he was saying that the underneath guts of the fountain were old. So that's when I asked her how old they were.
You said aerobics room, now you're saying gym. Gym or aerobics room?
Gym.
Okay.
Gym.
The gym one, I'd have to look. I don't think it's 9 years old.
Okay, well, we need to find out, but I'll
Yeah.
find out Thursday, right? Okay. The other big
Can I
thing that
interrupt?
came up, yeah.
Does it need to be replaced?
Do I think it needs to replace, if it's actually 9 years old, but he said the guts on the inside were rusted out, that the copper piping was rusted on the inside, that the water lines were bad, and that we're gonna constantly have issues because the mechanisms, when you push in the sides for the buttons, are worn out.
So whether it's 5 years, 10 years old, it needs to be replaced. Is that pretty much the bottom line?
I do have one comment. I think that would be money well spent for a couple of reasons. One, because both of these particular fountains are always getting water bottles filled. So people are having to hold that button in and jam that and push that button as hard as they can. Plus, it's a little less sanitary with the bottom of your bottle dragging in where people's spit goes, if you'll pardon me, and such. And I think a $200 difference would be money well spent.
Kelly Smith, 7316 Olympia Street. These water fountains are refrigerated, I'm assuming, and they're plugged in. Is there any reason why we don't get them from a place that warranties them and services them? It seems like we buy a lot of things and we install them that should have maintenance or service contracts to keep them alive, and they don't. We either don't purchase them or we don't look into that. We just buy them, install them, and forget them. Because I know they can be serviced or refrigerant.
I'll have to look, the last ones I believe were from Belson. They were purchased from there. I don't know, I mean, most all of them come with a manufacturer's warranty, but I don't know about the water coolant side for that, so I would have to look at that. All right, last thing on mine is, and Tim will be proud of this. We have some issues with some tables down by the tennis courts and some of the breezeways. Some of them been rusted out. We've had actually one that broke last week. I had the maintenance guys go out after that to assess them. 2 definitely need to be replaced. I would say if we were going to look at all of them, in fairness, probably 4. And they're fairly expensive. Again, just replacing the same with the same, they're about $400 a piece. So, 4 times 400. So, and that's just the basic. You have to make sure that you get the rust-resistant coatings and things like that. So, those are some items that we're gonna, put up for Thursday. But those are things that need to be looked at. And, you know, Tim brought it to the attention that one just fell apart and we had to remove it because of the safety issue.
So you've got the 3 different prices, the low-end residential and then 2 commercial prices. You're
Either one.
looking
Yeah, I don't
at
know what they're
the
gonna.
middle commercial prices?
Well, I think we should do the mill, yes, but I'm gonna bring the paperwork for it.
Is the commercial, are those products that are actually,
Like they come with a warranty, they have the same, I mean, the rust resistant coatings on them, they're comparable to what's out here as far as sun and wear and tear.
Alright, so we'll move this to Thursday, that section, and you'll bring us specifically what you would like to call the backup.
I mean, I have, we just didn't put it up, I think it'd be better for everybody to see it.
Hey, what am I, chopped liver?
Yes, you are actually. Sorry, I was looking down, I didn't look up, I apologize. Go ahead.
Tim Karsten, 2264 Moray Drive. Does the general manager not have a fund that she can use to buy, she's not authorized like $1,000 to take care of incidental items like this and have an overall budget? When I worked in a condo with 45 units, my general manager could go ahead and authorize several different types of expenses up to a certain limit, and it didn't need to come to the board, and so long as she remained within her budgetary requirements.
Not to correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand her contract limits her to what she can spend, and that is something that we need to review, so she does not have to keep coming to the board for these type of expenses. We just haven't gotten there yet, but we will by next month, definitely.
And just for the record, the list of things that she has as far as the estimated pricing is just shy of $6,000. So I mean, it's not
That's a total list. Each
Yeah.
individual item, if she's going to replace a table, then you have to replace a table. That's $400. That still doesn't fall under the $1,000 limit, or that $1,000 limit. So if she has to replace different tables, that would be each one of those. It's not an overall thing. You have to fix the table. You have to fix the pool table or the hockey table.
Yeah,
You
but
have to fix.
my contract has an annual amount.
Understand?
So my annual, I mean, I can pick and choose what I want to do, but when I meet that limit, then I met my.
I understand your contract is not your fault. Thank you.
That's not necessary. We will review her contract to allow her the authority to spend what we deem is proper in consultation with her. So we don't need any questions. All right, any further discussion on that? All right, so it'll be moved to Thursday. All right, the next new business item is your flood insurance policy for the beach house. The issue with this, the previous meeting was we needed to get an appraisal. There are 2 amounts, and we have to insure the beach house for its appraised value, but we cannot find the appraisal going back several years. So there are 2 amounts here. The building would be covered at $350,000, and contents at $50,000 would be insured for deductibles of $1,250. The premium would be $1,758. Insuring the building at $400,000 with the contents at $100,000. And the deductible would be the same at $1,250. The premium would be $1,991 because we don't have the appraisal. I'm inclined to go with the higher amount. It's a couple $100 more, but it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I know that's pretty succinct, but those are my thoughts, only because we can't find the appraisal, and so just to be on the safe side.
The appraisal would only be good for 6 months as far as an official appraisal. So just from a market standpoint, and all the commercial things that are in there, I would say $40,000 a year. If we were looking at flood damage, that would be the.
This doesn't cover flood, though, does it?
This is the flood policy.
This is the flood policy. Okay, fine.
So we can't get a policy for replacement, total replacement?
Not for flood.
What if we can't?
I thought flood was a $250,000 maximum.
Residential.
Well, this would be a commercial as opposed to a private. And this expires on August 29th, so something that we need to probably do quickly. Now, with the renewal, is there still the 30-day, or is that only if the policy expires?
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion? I so move this to Thursday without objection. All right, the next new business is the beach house usage policy. Again, this is probably going to be one of those that most people will not like. However, as stated in my report, it is important that we align our policies with who can use the facility with the covenants. Again, this is a private association, so what that means is if we open it any part to public use, it is no longer private. This is a private association. So, this might not be easy to enforce, but the old policy is available. I did not change much. I did not change who could reserve it. I copied the language verbatim with regards to high-density property owners in good standing and their children age 25 and younger, renters of property, as long as they have the transfer of usage form on file, they can rent the beach house. The bulk of the changes was to who can use or who can be guests. So, for example, if a member rents the beach house, they have 30 guest passes. So they can only have up to 30 guests if they have 30 guest passes. So they would have to ensure that there are enough members who are invited to whatever the event is to ensure there are enough guest passes. Is this going to be restricting? Yes. But for the attorney, if I rent the beach house as a member and I pay the usage fee, and I pay the deposit, and I have 100 of my closest friends, of which only 2 I like, then that by default is a public event. And so that facility then is open to the public. We cannot have it both ways. We cannot be a private facility and then allow the public, meaning non-members, to use our facility without guest passes and still be private. This is not me, this is per the attorney. So in order to remain private, whoever comes onto this facility, whether they are using the beach guest house or they're going to a shrimp boil, they're using a pier, using the facility, the bathroom, the pool, the gym, they have to be accompanied by a member and have a guest pass. I did not create the covenants, so don't throw eggs at me. But we need to ensure that the usage policies to include the beach house are in line with our covenants stating that this is a private association. So that's the biggest change. The second change is to committees and using the guest house free of charge. In discussions with what is a committee and what is a club, it was explained to me that clubs had to pay for the usage of the beach house, whereas committees did not. So certain clubs were renamed committees to waive the fee. I disagree with this policy because the committee, namely the social committee, charges for events. It's generally what they charge is a nominal fee. It's not anything that's great. But they enjoy the benefit of having the ability to use the beach house free of charge. So what this new policy does is it allows the social committee to use the beach house free of charge for the 4 main holidays or annual events, this being Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, and Halloween. Okay, and they would be allowed to reserve the beach house for that. Reservations for all other events could only be made 60 days in advance of the event. This would be put in place for everybody. Everybody hear? Because what is happening is somebody will call 12, 18 months in advance. So if this goes into effect, people can only make advancements up to 60 days in advance, and that allows greater opportunity for more people to use it. The usage fee has been increased by $15 because in order to help it pay for itself, I mean, have full day on a Sunday being $185 is really a nominal fee. $200 asking $15 more is really not that much. So we just across the board increased all the usage fees by $15. We also, excuse me, instead of the deposit with the cleaning, it was a $300 deposit if if extra cleaning was required, say maybe 20 minutes, then the person would lose their entire deposit. We didn't think that that was fair, so we broke it up into 30-minute increments. So if an additional 20 minutes of cleaning is needed, then $15 is it $30 is deducted. So as opposed to losing the entire $300 deposit, it's now broken up into 30-minute increments. So if you do some cleaning, but it's not as good as it should be, and the staff is required to do an extra 15-20 minutes of cleaning, then it's going to cost you $30, but then you get $270 back as opposed to $415, the entire $300. And a couple weekends ago, there was an event that happened that necessitated including language as to what is not included with the beach house rental. There was a father and a son who was using the pier. There were some guests at the beach house who then went to the father and the son at the pier and demanded that they leave because they reserved the beach house, which by default included the pier, and it was not, according to the father, the language that was used for him and his son was not polite. So it's clear in here, which the person who rents it has to sign that they have read and understand and acknowledge the terms and conditions. When a person rents the beach house, that is all they are renting. It excludes all other Holly by the Sea property. So if a father and son goes on the fishing pier, people at the beach house can go to the fishing pier, but that pier is not their use. It is still open, okay? And so that language has now been in there as well. There is no fee with regards to the security alarm if it has to be reset, and staff has to come and reset it because the individual comes too early or leaves too late. There is no fee, although in the usage policy it said a fee would be charged. So in consultation with the general manager, April, we decided $100 would be, a fair fee if the alarm goes off, someone checks in too early or doesn't check out in time, and it goes off because it automatically sets, the alarm does. And then if the staff has to come and reset the alarm, then the individual is charged $100, of course, which would be deducted from the deposit. And I do believe that pretty much everything else is just standard. The language was cleaned up to make certain points clear, and we included this policy up front. And it is a first come, first service, and only can be made 60 days in advance. So, that's it. I'll open it for discussion.
I have a question. Does this mean that the usage policy that the previous board implemented will be voted down?
No, this is just the beach house. I know what you're talking about, but this language here came from the usage policy that included everything.
Right.
So that was not changed. There was nothing that was changed with regards to who can use it, because it just simply says property owner in good standing.
Okay, but what it says, the people who can use it are the property owners. And in an example, we have all kinds of things that are families, that are homes. Perhaps you have a disabled son, a vet, you have a mother-in-law, you have a relation that lives with you that's part of your family. Currently, if they fill in a usage exception form, they can use the facility just like a homeowner. So they are not a guest. This is property owners. They are not property owners, they are guests. So by this policy, you could have the parents of such a person renting the beach house, but the disabled person could not use it unless they had a guest pass, because it says the use is limited to property owners. Now, further to that, in the second part, renters of the property owners. Now, and again, this was how the usage policy was discriminatory in the favor of renters. If you were somebody, you might be two sisters living in a property. If you were renting, you would both, and you were on the rental agreement, both of you would have membership. Both of you would have access. But now, you're saying property owners. Now, only one person is the property owner. So does the other person has to use a guest pass by this?
Are you referring to the renters? If the renter,
No,
if
I'm
there are
saying,
two renters
I'm
and they
saying
have
with
to.
the similar situation for renters and for homeowners.
Well, that's where our
favors-
covenants need to be updated, because
favors the
there is that, there is, within the covenants, the usage policy does
That's-
favor renters.
That's why I asked the first question. Are you going to rescind the current usage policy?
No, we're not rescinding the usage policy with regards to the facility. No, we're not.
Okay, but then,
And what we can do is we can look at that language and incorporate that language into this so that it does mirror that policy so that there is no conflict. And we can do
okay.
that before Thursday.
Okay, I've got another, shall I just go down? maybe?
Absolutely. Please
Okay.
do.
Okay, how is this going to be enforced? Because, you know, if you have a gate key and you can just get in, and it said if you're in violation, they could have their usage rights suspended. I mean, you may have a wedding and somehow you may gather together enough
Leave somebody in
parties.
the trunk.
Well, I mean, once the gate is open, the gate is open. You know, are you gonna have somebody staying there, watching them, checking them in, or
Well,
do
one
they
thing
have to
I-
come through, or what?
One thing I didn't elaborate on is there is a member guest list. So there is, the member who is renting or reserving it has to list who are the association members and then the guests so that those align. So if there's 10 members who are guests, they would have, you know, 30 passes each, 300 passes. So they would have enough passes for the guest members listed. So that's the first mechanism. And then, of course, the member renting has to come and get the pass. And I guess we could implement a procedure that requires them not to hand out the guests, or not to hand out the key. You know, that's a good question on how it can be enforced. I know that Kevin is.
But I'm saying they don't
enforcement
have
as
to
well.
come, it's like when you bring a guest into the facility, they have to go through the front desk.
Well, these would have to come up here because they would have to get the guest pass. So they would have, which is why they would need to list their names, because they would have to come and get the pass, the guest pass.
Okay, so then they've got a guest pass,
Mhm.
right? And, you know, I drive my truck and I got a guest pass and sitting next to me is somebody without a guest pass. How do you stop them getting in?
I'm not sure, that's a good
I mean,
question.
the implementation of this, I would imagine, is extremely.
And we're probably
difficult.
not going to be able to catch everybody, but this is because we have to show good faith that we are attempting to maintain this facility as a private facility. Could someone hop over the fence? Could someone get into the trunk? Could someone, yes, I mean, absolutely, there are ways around the policy, but we have to at least put in place a policy that shows we are adhering to it being a private facility.
I don't want,
Yes,
okay.
we-
You say that this is only for the beach house. Now, if you use a guest pass, you could use every aspect of the facility while you're here. So,
Well, let me ask you this, when someone reserved the beach house before,
right.
and they had guests, were those guests allowed to come onto the property?
No.
To the other properties?
Well, but they were not using the guest pass. They stayed
Well,
with,
I understand what you're saying, but they were not permitted before. The guest pass is specifically for the beach house, to go to the beach house, that's it.
they were permitted if they had a guest pass. Now, suppose I bring somebody in with a guest pass, now they have free access.
No, they don't. Per the policy, when someone rents the beach house, their guests only have access to the beach house. That's it. Now, the guest pass, as you know, for our attorney, is to ensure that it is private, because if the number of guests exceed the number of guest passes, we are then public.
I totally understand the rationale for this, and obviously it's going to be big changes because it will mean that, I mean, it doesn't just touch the beach house. It touches swimming lessons. No
And
longer
yes.
will people that are not members of Holly by the Sea be able to have swimming lessons. No longer will people be able to, visiting tennis teams, be able to come in without guest passes, lifeguard training,
And that's something that-
babysitting training. I
absolutely.
mean, every aspect of this.
I think you've hit on the head. We are a private facility.
And
But
we're
that's
going,
what
And
I'm
we
saying
does
to
create
en-
that one.
Right, but to enforce it, You have to be across the board.
And we are, and that's why we're starting with this. I mean, we're gonna hit every single policy that you said. Each one is going to be reviewed and ensured that it is specifically stated in terms of the fishing, not the fishing, the swimming, all of that. Because you're right, we have to ensure that this is a private facility, and again, that means there are going to be some people who are not going to be happy and who will probably egg our homes. But as you said, we have a fiduciary responsibility to this association. And if we open it up to the public, we are opening up ourselves to liability that many homeowners, I don't think, understand just how great that is with regards to the liabilities if we continue the same practices. So we
I mean,
need
it's
to
the
get that.
ADA compliant.
But it's more than that. It's more than that, though.
Yvonne, could we possibly get around some of these issues, you know, not having the full guest pass being used, but say when you rent the facility for, you know, all day Sunday for $200, you know, you get X amount of usage passes that go with that rental.
But then you're selling the passes and you're becoming.
No, you're not, no, it wouldn't be selling. I think what he's saying is, you know, if you pay a full day for, what, $200 and some dollars, whatever it is, that with that you get, say, 20 passes, is that what you're saying, that you're permitted 20?
Yeah, but that member gets 30 guest passes that
Just
are
for
for
that
exclusive
For
use
that
of that.
specific use.
of
Beach
that
house, yes.
unit.
And that solves the problem of having them go everywhere because it's specific to the guest. It's a different class of guest pass. Can you create that?
Does it keep it?
I'll find out if that
Yeah,
would satisfy, but I think that's a
you'd
good
also
idea.
have to check that that isn't,
Yes.
you know, like selling the passes.
I don't know that it would be selling because you're not
Yeah,
looking
for
for
me,
sure.
it's a package deal,
Yeah.
but it's a package deal, if you're renting the house, you're paying already to rent that house, so within the rental, if we had put that you get X amount of passes for your guests during that rental, it's not selling the tickets, you're not selling a pass on the side of the road, you're selling the whole beach house for that day.
An event, I agree.
It should, it
We'll have
should be
to-
checked.
We'll have to check,
Something to check with the
because,
attorney.
I'll check with legal to see how that can be worked out. I think that's a good idea. If it keeps us within the realm of being private to do that, I think that's a good compromise. But that's something, as much as I hate to pick up the phone for legal, that is definitely something that we need to do.
I mean, because our current guest policy is just, I mean, it's an arbitrary
It is,
amount that
yeah.
was determined by a previous board, so, I mean, it's not.
Being independent.
But it doesn't say 30 passes per.
Yeah, I don't think it covers, so it's like the number of guest passes.
How about an event?
I've got it. Go. Okay, there's a section in here that, the member reserving and using it, must be with the guest.
Can you tell me
for-
what section, what subtitle?
Wait a minute. Okay, this is green section on page 3, rental information. The third little whatever thing. It's the green section. Well, yeah, green. So if you're a member, you can have 30 people. If you somehow gained another bunch of guest passes from somebody else, you have to have one member for each lot of 30 guest passes. That's how that reads.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So instead of like the swim team where if you were going to have a wedding, you would accumulate them maybe from your friends or somebody. You couldn't do that unless they were invited.
That's right. There's no transfer of guest passes here.
Now, what about the situation as it is now? The people have rented or paid the deposit or, got these rented?
No, we would have to make sure that it's effective. We'd have to, those individuals who have already reserved, they would be grandfathered. This would be for all new reservations, because I don't think it would be right to retroactively say to them, okay, you've signed this, but now the terms have changed. So this would be for, once this policy takes effect, say it's approved on Thursday, from that point on, anybody making reservations would fall under the new policy.
Right, although there is a problem with the grandfathering, because if you said we're now a private facility, and then, you know, because they already
We've
had
always
the
been
reservation.
private, we've never been public.
All right, hang on.
No, but I'm saying by having everybody in to the facility, that's what makes you public. Let me say it again what I said. That
Stop.
if we want to maintain being a private facility, then we cannot have any non-members or their guests there.
So what you're saying is with the grandfathering,
That's a problem.
we're still
Yeah,
opening that door to the
technically we
public.
are,
Well, we would
yeah.
have to see how many reservations we have between now and, I mean, I'm not sure how many are on the books right now, but we could find out and try to work something out for them so that we're still within the parameters of being private, but still allows them to have their function.
Go ahead.
Did you have any others?
That's it. You said that you were going to, get this in sync with the.
Yes, I will get with regards to the cover page here, the beach house.
I have to say that this policy is gonna be unenforceable. Honestly, you won't be able to track everybody coming and going. Second of all, you can't delineate a guest pass as a guest pass. If you call it a guest pass, it's a guest pass. They can use the entire facility. That's the way our guest policy works. It
Well, then we
says-
may need to change that to a
Event
beach
pass.
house guest
Yeah.
pass, and then a guest pass where someone comes in.
Special
to use
event
the
pass.
I need to
facility.
correct you that clubs and committees never had to pay. When, at the beginning,
Why?
you said clubs and committees had to pay. We've never had to pay.
Well, I was told that clubs had to pay, but committees didn't have to pay.
No.
See, again, that goes to my point, I don't think that a club or a committee should be exempt from pay, especially if they're charging homeowners to attend the event, like the switch and float. I think it's a nominal fee, but it's still a fee. And also, an issue that has been brought to my attention is that, for example, the social committee, who I think does a tremendous job in really providing a lot of social events, they rely solely, or I won't say solely, but many times they rely on the staff instead of planning it and then, you know, making sure things get cleaned up, and, you know, they've left linen to be
You're setting
cleaned.
a precedence here that
Yes.
it's gonna spiral.
Probably.
Say goodbye to your flea markets. Say goodbye to the Bloodmobile. It's all parked in
I
our parking
understand that,
lot.
Kelly, we are a private association, and that's the thing. If we allow, you know, the non-members
It's
to
an
come,
association for
we are then
people to
public.
use, okay? I mean,
Members to use. It's an association for members to use. So
but
when we
members
open
aren't gonna
up,
rent it if they can't bring anybody.
well, if we open it up to non-members where anybody can come and there's no guest passes associated with that, we open ourselves up to liability that can be quite costly. And it hasn't come to fruition, but it's on the horizon. So we either have to be private or we have to be public. There's really no, according to the attorneys, there's no middle ground.
Well,
It's
then we
private
need
or
gates,
public.
we need gates at all the entrances so that we can have the same thing across the street, because it's all the association. And it all falls under the same rules.
County roads.
That's the way it's gonna end up if you start this. It's gonna keep spiraling, and we need a gated community.
I don't think so.
Keep people out.
I don't think so.
Bill Stevens, I'd like to commend you people for getting the policies and stuff on the beach house back the way it belongs. And I have a little different opinion than Mrs. Crawford has about the guest policies. When years past a year, when you rented the beach house, assuming I rented it and had a wedding, I rented the beach house, the people that came there stayed at the beach house. Now, if I had 30 guest passes that people wanting to use, they could very well, I could use those if I wanted them to come up here and use the facility. But we didn't have that opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Were you done?
I didn't understand.
Mr. Stevens, was that it? It seemed like you weren't quite finished.
I didn't understand.
You're saying that this policy mirrors, if I understand correctly, mirrors what was done in the past. Was that correct? Is that essentially what you were saying, Mr. Stevens? What you were saying is that this policy would closely mirror what was done in the past.
That policy that you're using now is what basically they've been used for 15 or so years.
Yes.
This guest policy that you're talking about, if somebody rents the beach house and they want some of their guests to come up here, they need guest passes.
Yes.
When you rent a beach house, you rent a beach house. And as far as different organizations using it, you were right on key on who's supposed to use it for free. No clubs, committees. And that's the way it's always been.
Thank you. Yes, Ron.
It appears to me that essentially all the covenants say, as far as guests, are that the board shall have the power to adopt and publish rules and regulations governing use of common areas, facilities, including the personal conduct of the members and the guests thereon, and to establish penalties for infractions, etc., etc. There's obviously a policy somewhere that designates guest passes and has a regulation for that. So we're obviously going to have to take a look at that and perhaps revamp that. And I don't see any reason we couldn't have a two-tiered type of guest pass, just specifically for something like this. And I haven't seen what the policy actually is, so we'll have to hold that in advance. I believe that's something that we could find a way to adopt.
It seems to me that, with the enforcement arm that you're talking about, having a policy and having a written policy, you can't stop people from violating your policy. They could pull up here on a boat and use it, and it doesn't make us a public institution. So if we have a policy written, and if we have some level of enforcement and somebody chooses to violate that and gets caught, then they get caught, but we still have a policy which makes us private.
Well, we have to show good faith in enforcement. It's just like
Right.
when people are violated for signs or, brick mailbox when they shouldn't have a brick mailbox, or numbers not being posted on their mailbox or house. Not everybody that has that infraction is violated, if you will. But when the architectural staff sees it, then they send a letter. And so there is that attempt to enforce what's written down. So, no, do I think that if we institute this policy, it's going to be 100%? Of course not, because human nature is someone's going to try to skirt what the policy is. But we have to show good faith that this is what we're attempting to do in order to maintain the private. And again, my personal opinion, if you want to bring your guests, that's fine, but it's not really, I don't care if a herd of cow comes on the property, that's my personal opinion. But it's not about what I personally think, it's about what's best for this association and, ensuring that the policies align with what the covenants state. And it's not going to make people happy, and no doubt I will be blasted on Facebook as some evil witch.
You haven't asked the association. You haven't asked the association. You're just up and doing this.
There is
Where's the
between now and
knee-jerk
Thursday,
reaction
and
from?
again, Kelly, this doesn't have to be voted on Thursday. I mean, we can have a 30-day period. This will be moved to Thursday if this board decides, and people can discuss. And if there are enough people who come and would like to review it for 30 days, we can do that. But we have to start this process. We do.
And you have to communicate with us,
Yes, we
because
do.
again, no beach policy was posted. Was this posted someplace, the beach policy for us to review as an association?
It isn't in
Do we have copies of it?
It's up at the front. We made copies so people can read tonight. We're not voting on it tonight. Again, that's why we started this, Tuesday, Thursday, so there could be public input. Okay, and again, we can make changes between now and Thursday and revisit it. And if we have to tweak it some more as we go, that's fine. But it's not just this policy. We are going to be reviewing the tennis and the swimming and all of the areas where we have traditionally, or previous boards have traditionally allowed public or non-association members, if you will, to come in.
I just had two suggestions and I'll sit down.
Yes.
One is, could we potentially develop some kind of, I mean, like at my work, we have the ability to gift PTO days. Could there be some kind of policy to allow people that know they're not going to use their guest passes to gift them into a pool that people could then have access to, would be one thing. Or the second thing would be, do the two-tiered or multi-tiered system. If it's just, if the number of guest passes is 30 and that's arbitrary, that number can be changed as long as it stays within a reasonable amount. I mean, I just got two guest passes used on me because my son brought their friends up here, so now I only have 28 left. Probably less than that, And so maybe we need more, maybe we don't need more, but if there was a pool that we could gift from where some people go, I'm never going to use that. A couple ideas.
If I may just a moment. Okay. One issue of concern, Tim Carson, 2264 Moray Drive. One issue of concern, where did the edits come up from this? How are the edits developed on this policy?
I took the policy as it is now,
Right.
and I simply cleaned it up. There were some sentences that needed to be rewritten just simply because they were confusing. So I didn't go through those. But the areas that are highlighted in green
Right.
are the areas highlighted in yellow were already highlighted in yellow. I didn't go through and unhighlight everything. Those in yellow were already highlighted in yellow when I got the policy in Word format.
Right.
The areas in green were areas that were either there and I changed, there is a significant change to it, or I added.
Okay.
So all non-yellow highlighted are things that were added or changed drastically from the original. Everything else is the same, with the exception of, I didn't highlight the cost. We did increase the cost by $15
Right.
across the board, with the exception of the deposit. We left the deposit at $30.
So what I'm asking to establish here, this was not done by a committee that wasn't posted or anything else like this. This was done
Yeah.
by you. Okay.
And, wait a minute. I sent it to the board, and
Right.
each one individually provided their comments, and so some of those comments were added, and again, this is for discussion.
Right.
I mean,
So there was no meeting or anything else like that? That's all, that's
No, we
good.
did not meet outside to
And
discuss this.
what we are doing right now, if I can remember what we started off by saying, is that we are trying to bring all our usage policies back in line to our covenants.
Which they were a private facility.
Because what we want to do is to make sure that we either have to change our covenants, or we shouldn't be changing, we shouldn't be operating outside the guidelines of our covenants. Even though you do have the ability to make policies and stuff like that as a board of directors, you still have to make sure you follow within the legal aspects as well, which sounds like the lawyer's telling us. We are possibility of losing our, I believe when we were talking about the pool, that we never got the access to. We're ADA and all those types of issues where we can be fined thousands of dollars per day if we're not in compliance, if we're a public facility. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's one issue.
All right, thank you.
If we're a public, but it does open us up to liability that we're not under as a private facility.
Hi, Chris Barton, 2038 Bahama Drive. Number one, Scott talked about a pool for the guests.
Talking to the mic, Chris. Pull it to you.
With the guest policy, you are 100% liable for any damage or anything that your guest would cause. So if you have this pool and you hand these cards out and there's damage, these people need to know in black and white that they are going to be held liable for
And
any
that's what this
damage.
policy says. This policy is very clear. If there's are any damages to the beach house, the member is responsible because that member is reserving it, using it for whomever they invite. And if anything exceeds $300, say there's damage, that's $1,000. The $300 is deducted from that, and then they owe the balance of $700, and that's placed on their account.
Okay, and my next question, are we keeping cruise and cruise?
We're not. I'm going to stay on point with this.
Okay.
We're going to stay on point with this policy.
One more comment on public exceeding my limit, but,
Say that again.
one more comment, probably exceeding my limit. I only caution you to choose policies in the right order to change. You seem to be putting the cart before the horse here. You should probably start with maybe the usage policy and not the beach house usage policy, because this policy is going to affect every other policy. So we should probably start with the big one first and work your way down to the little policies.
Maybe we should just resend all policies and start them with them.
That would work too.
That would definitely get the eggs out, right?
Except for
Do
the
not
last
publish
year,
where I
so we're
live.
okay.
I think we're good. I think so. And X costs a lot.
One of the reasons that we did choose this, thank you for reminding me, is this is the one policy that uses the most non-members, that the most non-members tend to come.
Right.
So your point is valid and well taken, but that was the reason why we started with this one. And again, go ahead.
It's also the only facility where we don't monitor it or have any requirements for guest pass.
Because you're paying a fee to use the facility.
Right.
Because my fee's already paid to have that thing built, so why would I pay as a member to use it unless I'm bringing people that are non-members?
I don't follow.
I don't pay extra to use this facility.
Right.
I'm sitting here now and you didn't charge me a fee to come in. Then
We
why would
didn't have to have an event. If you were gonna have an event over here in the screen room, I believe that there's a fee for it.
Only if I reserve it, I can come in here any day and have an event.
But with the beach
Well,
house,
you can't get the beach house, we don't give you a key.
but with the beach house, you've got when it's being
That
used,
anymore.
you've got the electric, the water, there's other things that have to be paid.
You've got all that
I
here.
understand, but this facility, it's two different facilities that we're talking about.
But
It's
my
exclusive use.
assessments paid for that
To be
facility
built, yes it did.
and to be run. If nobody uses it, who's paying for it?
If nobody's using it, the cost is
We are.
nominal because
We're still paying for it.
the power, the lights aren't being used, the water's not being
We're
run.
still paying for it.
Beth Walter, 1948 Resort Street. I've had several people question why they have to pay a fee to use the beach house when they've already paid to have it built. Part of the reason, as far as I'm concerned, is there's 4,700 lots over there. You can't have, you only got 352 days, 52 days out of the year. If everybody wanted to use that facility at the same time, you couldn't do it. So unless you're charging someone, that's the only way to kind of judge who's going to get it. Because if somebody, all they have to do is call up and say, I want to use the beach house next week, and then they decide they don't want to use it, they're not out anything. But if they have to pay a fee and then they cancel, then they're out money. So they're going to be more apt to use it, or at least call up and cancel well in advance so they don't lose their money.
See a deposit, but not a fee.
It's Article 4, property rights in the common properties, says that the right of the association to charge reasonable admission and other fees for use of common properties. So it is in the covenant that you can't charge.
It's in the covenants too that you can charge fines, but somewhere else it says you can't.
Which brings us back to the point of we have to provide our covenants, which
Well, this is nothing new.
I know this is nothing new, and hopefully that's what we're gonna try to start, but here's the thing, Kelly, if we start enforcing what we can, people will actually, hopefully, sit up and say, we need to actually do this now, because everyone knows, or at least those who pay attention know, that we can't ever get the number that we need to change the covenants, because people aren't affected by it. But if we start enacting the policies that try to stay within the confines of the covenants, that's really gonna start affecting people, and then they're going to say, we need to maybe address this.
But you can't enforce it.
We can try, no, we can't enforce every single policy that comes
That's the
through.
thing, it's unenforceable.
I don't know that it's unenforceable. I mean, are there areas, could people
Unless
get around it?
you're gonna
Yes.
pay somebody else to stay there with a ticker thing and check people in and count the number of people that show
Well, you
up.
have to have some element of trust with any policy, because they're agreeing to this. You know, it's just like when someone brings a guest into this facility, that member is agreeing that that guest that they're bringing in is not going to destroy the facility. Now, at some point, the guest may separate themselves from the member. Maybe the guest goes to the sauna and the member's in the gym.
But they have
You
to
know,
walk
do
through
we-
a gate
do
and
we
they
have
have to be signed in.
Yes, and that's what the person has to do here. They have to come and get the passes with the names of those who are non-members. Now, at some point, do they get separated? Can it, you know, can anything happen? Absolutely. But we have to at least have a policy in place that adheres to this being a private facility.
But who's gonna go out to the facility and point out that who are the non-members that aren't on this list during, you know, a function or
That's something
event?
that's going
It's
to have to be.
unenforceable.
Okay.
It just reminded me of one thing. Thank you. Suppose, what would be the policy if you did not rent a pavilion, if you just brought a whole bunch of people through the gate and you didn't have a form or you didn't have anything? There's nothing to stop them coming in.
You don't have to rent the pavilion.
No, there's nothing
No,
to
no, no,
stop
but
anyone
I'm
from coming in.
saying you're
You
saying.
don't need a policy, is what you're saying.
I'm saying if we are saying we are not having anybody in any part of this facility that's not a guest or a member, how would we enforce it for a non-scheduled event? Like, you know, 20 of us are gonna have something at the pavilion, but we're not gonna rent it, we're just gonna do it.
Well, this doesn't have to, this addresses the beach house.
Okay.
So someone,
I mean, I'm
I
just
guess
playing
could,
with
I guess
thought.
could a member bring in a caravan without telling the front desk and go to the beach house? Yes, but they wouldn't be able to have access to it, because from my understanding, they have to get,
But then the liability is on that person for breaking the rules that we have with the policy
Right.
that's in place. That's the whole point of it, is to have something that ensures our side of it. If that person decides to break it, then they break it, we can say, well, we have this policy, that member did it, and we can pursue them out of it.
Absolutely.
and this form has to be signed that it was read and understood, and that they are acknowledging to abide by the terms that they've signed. So it just reduces the liability of the association. Now, what we can do is I can, because I think there probably should be brought up a good point, Kelly, of having more public input, is I can work on a rewrite, move to Thursday, present that, and then have a 30-day public review where we come back the first meeting in September to vote on it. Support the yes, no.
Well, I think we need to act, try to convert our policies to reflect what private
Talk in the
facilities.
mic, please.
I think we need to try and get our policies in line as quickly as we can, just for future events that, you know, will come up.
Well, I'll make the rewrites, we'll find out, like the two-tier gas pass, if we can do that, and we'll make some revisions to the policy, and I'll put it out, to the board. We'll post it here, and then we'll come back to it on Thursday.
Tim Carson, 2264 Moray Drive. I don't want to be standing out on the roadways of Holly by the Sea again, or watching anybody else standing out on the roadways of Holly by the Sea again with the sign saying recall the board. So what I would, because these are going to be some deeply held and emotional issues, I would recommend that you handle them in a deliberate fashion. I believe you have gotten a very good start, but you might need to consider having a couple of workshops on this before you vote on it. I would recommend you don't vote on these types of issues until the end, or until next month. That way people have enough time to consider it, digest it, and move forward. Unless you're being told by the lawyer you have to get this done.
And I appreciate that, but here's the thing, if someone wants to recall me for trying to bring this association in line with the covenants that protects them, so be it, but I am not going to be swayed by public pressure to not do what is right, because I have said, whenever someone asked me what I intended to do as a board member, it was to do what I think is right and in the appropriate fashion. So if someone dislikes me for that, that's okay, but I do agree that we can have, although we need to get this done as quickly as possible, what we can do is just go through within the next week, go through the policies, rewrite them, put them out for public opinion for 30 days, and then come back to it in September. But we do need to address these as quickly as possible for legal avenues, but I didn't run for this board to be liked, and if people dislike me because I'm looking out for their best interest, that's okay, because I will explain it, and I will provide a reason why. I can't speak to the other board members, they may disagree with it, and the policy fails, that's up to them. I'm not going to dislike them if they disagree, or five different individuals. But I have to at least do the best that I can for this association. Yes.
I'm on board with that.
Beth Walter, 1948 Resort Street. I just want to make a suggestion that you number and letter these so that when we're referring to something, we can say Section 1, Item A, Section 2, Item 3, something like that. Because right now, having these little squiggly things and no numbers is very difficult to follow anybody.
I will. I didn't change the outline. This was the format of the original, and I just simply added that I would do that for easier citation. All right, so we'll try to make some changes between now and Thursday. We'll do this to Thursday without objection. All right, moving on to the late fees and finance charges. The first one, and let's see. April, please check me if I say it wrong, okay? Feel free to jump in if I don't say this correctly. In the transition between January and June of people sending in their payments, certain payments were not applied because of the transition. So someone would remit their payment, it was not applied to their account when it was received, and as such, they accrued late charges and penalties. So what we are doing here is waiving those penalties and late fees that they were charged after their payment was posted. So their payment was received, it was not posted, or it did not reflect upon their, no?
Well, yes, but just to be a little bit more clear.
Thank you.
When the payments come in, they were coming into First Service, okay, through Lockbox. And I say through First Service, but they held the banks, they were our accounts, but they came in that way. So they were coming in Lockbox, or they were being mailed in to those addresses and then being applied to the accounts. When the changeover happened, a lot of those payments were applied there, under First Service's accounts, like they always did. But when we did the changeover and they left and moved, we didn't get the documentation of the accounts that needed to be applied and credited here until later. So because of that, in our system, we were giving late fees and finance charges as we're supposed to, when in reality they paid them through the First Service end. We just got the documentation to apply them later. So we need to waive these because they would have never had them had they come directly into us. Because they were timely, that's the way the process went.
So in other words, due to no fault of their own, individuals were charged late fees because their payments weren't posted in a timely fashion. So that just simply waives any late fees from the time their payment would have been received for the duration that they were charged a late fee or late penalty. That's all this does, and it just brings it current.
So when do these people send in their money? Because aren't you late after the 31st of January? I mean, you're really late after the end of the year, but we give a month's grace period. So that after, and then there were 2 more months before the transition. So if they weren't paying until May or something, they were late.
They're not May. As a matter of fact, we have one of these in here that's a late January. The problem is, to officially close out books after these are applied, the way that Ray applies them, is at the end of February, okay? So it'll hit the very first day of February if she clears them out, whether they've been paid through that month because of the grace period or not, at the end of February. But what also happens there is to clear the financials out, we don't get those bank statements to clear them until the next month. So we're always behind a month with our financial to clear them out, to clear up the delinquents. So with the changeover, when it hit in April, Rhonda didn't have March's statements yet to clear out anything that was sitting that was left, that was the end of February.
But she's saying they're already late to begin
So
with.
an example here, I'm not going to give you the owner's name or the homeowner's name, but a homeowner was charged a late fee of $30.66. Now, this owner did not receive anything from Holly by the Sea. She submitted her payment on January 27th. But due to this gap, if you will, it did not come in until later, so she was charged this late fee. So she would not, if this had been processed on the 27th when it was sent, this wouldn't have happened. But it did. There's not very many people. There's 8 individuals, so we're not talking about, you know, half the association, but these people, through no fault to their own, were charged a late fee. And so what this does is this just for these individuals waives the late fee or penalty for being on the books as being late, which they were not.
I'm not saying it's not a clerical error. All I'm saying is we shouldn't charge them if they show us proof that their payment came in at the end of January. It may have been a clerical error on our part, but they shouldn't be charged these charges.
So are you saying there's 8?
Yes.
Okay.
She just gave me a full list.
So it's not this whole list?
No, it's the ones highlighted on
Just one time.
We've got 2 or more on page 6, so it's 10.
So there are 10 in total then. So we will move this to Thursday, which will be to waive these fees. So the second one that deals with the late fee and charges is an individual who purchased, an LLC who purchased a home on Masters Boulevard. Late fees, association dues were not paid for 2015. This owner is asking for the interest and late payment fees to be waived along with the assessment to be prorated from when he purchased the property. This is my opinion. This gentleman, when he bought the property, he's made it clear that he intends to flip this. So he understood when he purchased the property that these late fees and this assessment were due. This was not, he purchased it and then all of a sudden it just fell in the sky and there it was, and he was taken unaware. So I have inclined not to approve this one simply because it's part of what he purchased. But again,
Yeah, if he was a homeowner and he was gonna live in the house, I would be more inclined, you know, I would think that waiving the fee would be more appropriate, but, you know, there's a cost to doing business, and he purchased it on the courthouse steps. You know, his intention is to run a business. The fees were owed for 2015, and the late fees on top of the assessments.
I think to waive that fee would set a precedent that we have difficulty dealing with further down the line.
Well, and just to let off that, this guy did contact Ray Latham, our accounts receivable. She did say that he did not request an estoppel, but that she did speak to him and told him of the fees that were due on it before he purchased it.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is if an estoppel report was done.
Kevin,
any
even
comments from the board?
when they purchase that from the courthouse steps, they don't
Yes.
pay those
Yes,
fees?
they're supposed to. He's just asking not to. They're supposed to.
Too bad.
Well, as far as normally in a closing, you know, the fees are prorated, you know, for the date that you purchase, and so the seller takes care of his half, and then the buyer takes care of the remainder. But on the courthouse steps, you just buy it as is.
His responsibility.
Pick it up.
All right, so we'll move to not approve that
Well, move the
that waiving to Thursday.
Thursday.
Okay, so the final item on new business is the withdrawal of petition. If anybody has any comments to be made during this section, they need to be civil. If not, I will ask you to leave. Order Rule 61B-50.112 is a withdrawal of petition, and it reads as follows. Can everybody hear me? A petition for arbitration of a recall may be withdrawn at any time prior to the commencement of the scheduled final hearing. Such withdrawal shall be in writing and directed to the arbitrator. Withdrawal may be made by telephone, but must be subsequently confirmed in writing or by an order certifying the recall entered by the arbitrator if the petitioner fails to file written notice. Withdrawal of petition for arbitration of the recall shall be with prejudice. If the board withdraws the petition, the recall shall be deemed certified and the board members recalled. The board member or members recalled shall turn over all association records in his or their possession within 5 full business days after the withdrawal is filed, i.e. received by the division. And then it lists the specific authorities to do so. And that is the policy. I'll open it up for discussion. Does everybody know what that means, what I just read?
Can you speak English?
Speak English? If the
Summarize.
board elects on Thursday to submit a withdrawal of the petition, and it is submitted to the state of Florida, to the arbitrator, the recall, if he dismisses it, stands. And the final board member from that recall would be recalled. That's what that means.
General Stevens, I'm
Yes.
assuming that you folks got some legal advice from either our attorneys or
Well,
the state.
unfortunately, Mr. Stevens, the advice that I was given does not fall in line with this Florida rule. This is a rule that is on the books in Florida, and I specifically asked if we could dispose of it, and I was told by legal that it had to come from John. I was not informed of this. This was brought to my attention last
Do
week.
you have any documentation from the state of Florida?
This rule is a Florida rule. This comes from the state of Florida. This is
Okay.
a Florida rule. I didn't make this up.
My
And
concern-
again, let me just repeat it so you can write this down, and everybody can write it down, look it up. It's Florida Rule 61, B as in Bravo, -50.112, and it is titled Withdrawal of Petition.
Yeah, I understand that very thoroughly, but I have a different opinion than what you might have.
Okay?
I'm concerned, and I'm sure you're talking about voting her off of the board, which I have no problem if you're legal. But I'm just saying, I don't want to see us get sued by someone because we don't have legal advice. Now, my legal advisor tells me that the part you've got underlined back here is referring to the board that was getting recalled, which was her, Mr. Crouch, and whatever the person was, had the right to withdraw this like you're saying. Not you four people that just got elected. Now that's the difference in what my legal advisor is telling me, that what you don't have anything in writing though.
I have.
Other than
laws
that,
in
you
writing.
just have a statute, but you're.
Yes, well, Florida
you're-
statute tends to be
you're-
binding.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
assuming.
I'm not
that
assuming,
you're
it's what
talking-
it says.
It doesn't say this board.
It
That's
doesn't
the
say
point I'm
the
trying
other.
to
Doesn't say it doesn't either.
It tells you that this board that was getting recalled had the right to withdraw that recall petition at any time. Same thing happened a few years ago when some people got recalled. They had that right to do that. They didn't do it. But now, I haven't kept up with the recall. Now, I understand that all of the paperwork and everything has been turned in to the arbitrator. Is that true?
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, so the process
Because
has,
unfortunately, the information has not been totally forthcoming.
and I don't know either. So the arbitration has started.
No, the arbitration has not commenced. There has been no commencement of a final hearing. So what this says is the petition of withdrawal of a recall may be withdrawn at any time prior to the commencement of the scheduled final hearing. Now, once the final hearing begins, that's it. Whatever the arbitrator says is final. That scheduled hearing, that hearing has not commenced yet.
But,
It's not, it's
but
not
the day
done.
that Mr. Longman turned in those votes for recall, that was the day the process started.
The process, but the
I'm always-
final hearing has not begun, and that's
The final
the
hearing
language
won't
states.
be until the arbitrator sets up that day.
And we can submit this anytime prior to that.
Well, I'm just
Prior to the
I'm just-
commencement.
I'm
Commencement
just saying
means begin.
For the sake of the association, I think you people should take a serious look and get some legal advice before you try to vote anybody out, because I can see her sitting here waiting to sue us over something of this statute. Because I don't think they're talking about this board, they were talking about her, Crouch, and the other guy that resigned had that opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add that after the petition and the response, there was another response, and all of the information was submitted in a very timely way inside the required 10 days. So who has dropped the ball? I don't know why this does not go on to arbitration. I mean, under this rule, it would appear that even if a recall was totally bogus, it could just be certified. And in that, it just seems not really conducive to the process. I mean, we are in the middle of documentation. We answered, we have one major issue. All the documentation has gone to John Longden's attorney. Now, whether he's turned it in to the arbitrator, I don't know. And I don't know why he hasn't, because he received it in the most timely one. All the things that he asked for that we have.
Yes. Lucy Crouch. The statute that you just quoted was 61B-50.1112, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I had the entire chapter for that statute, and in the very beginning, where it talks about the scope, organization, procedure, and title, it states that specifically this chapter applies to all proceedings held pursuant to sections 718 and 719 Florida statutes. It doesn't mention anything about 720. And I'll leave this with you if you will.
Please do, thank you.
But my understanding is we fall under 720, and this does not apply to 720.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Timothy Karsten, 2264 Moray Drive. Throughout this recall and throughout the process prior to the recall, I spoke several times with the egg timer up here that Mrs. Crawford and Mr. Crouch had up. I believe through questioning of Mrs. Crawford, I established that, or she admitted that she wrote the letters to FSR. Am I correct in that? I believe you just nodded your head saying yes. However,
What letters are you talking
the letters to terminate
Yes.
the contract. According to our covenants and bylaws, I believe all these would be considered as notices. And the contract, paragraph 8 of the contract says all notices have to go to a certain address. And our covenants and bylaws require that all notices be prepared by the secretary. When we had the lawyer here, was that March?
Yes.
During that meeting, Mrs. Crawford said that she posted the notice for the following Thursday that there would be a special meeting. I challenged that during that meeting, and I brought it to the lawyer's attention that the only person who can post notices is the secretary, even though we had a secretary resign. I also brought it to the lawyer's attention that, according to our covenants and bylaws, that the president is prohibited from holding the office of the secretary. We had several incidents where Mrs. Crawford did not follow our covenants and bylaws. Personally, I have no idea how we can continue, why this is continuing. I wholeheartedly, and I understand that this is 719 versus 720 because I just pulled it up on my phone myself. But I have no idea how when we have you're sitting in this place because you had 377 votes. We had over 2,100 submitted. 400 or so were contested. That still leaves more than then there's no reason why you should just resign and just save this association all this, I don't want to be kicked out. Save this association any continued bitterness, argument. Let us get on with what we have to do to repair this place. I mean, I understand that Melinda Robinson was the person that was most likely to be, or is rumored to have been the person that's most likely to be somebody that you wanted on the board. She only got 263
Okay,
votes.
let's keep it to what the
Okay.
item is.
There's 360 votes, 263 votes, down from 377. We lost, lady.
Tim, have a conversation and be civil.
Yvonne, I'm for looking at it a little bit more thoroughly and not rushing headstrong into it, just from the standpoint of making sure, I think that we may need to look at an outside counsel who is not involved in this process.
I think that would be a good idea.
To try and find out, what the legal course is, because I don't want to proceed in a direction that's not proper. And, let it run its course, and whatever chips fall, once we've, further researched it.
I agree with that. I do think we need to seek independent, someone who has no interest whatsoever, other than just providing sound counsel as to what Ms. Crouch provided, and then also what the Florida rule says, and we will do that tomorrow, and come back Thursday.
Joe Campbell, Brinkley Street. My 2 cents are, I don't want to spend 3 more cents on any legal matters to do anything with this.
He does not want to spend 3 more cents. He'll spend 2, but not 3.
Not 3 cents to move any further. So whatever it takes to let it fall or drop, nothing fighting, so there's not another, we wasted so much money already on egos and everything else, fighting things so that's my 2 cents. I'll give you 3 cents.
So give me 3. Thank you. Can I get 3 and a half? All right. So we'll get clarification and come back on Thursday. All right, that concludes the new business items, so we will open it up to public comment. To the public, yes, ma'am.
Can I have one?
No.
How about at the mic?
Okay, I listened on, to the meeting last time, and, there was a question asked about when, well, it was an ambiguous question. It was about, I don't want to give details, but since all this has been completely on Facebook, I think everybody knows what we're talking about. Our legal issue.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
Wait. We're gonna recess for about 2 minutes.
I've got it on my calendar.
All right, we're gonna come back in. All right, in the July special meeting, I provided an update, and I will be the first one to admit I made a mistake. I had stated, and this was the information provided to me, so either I just didn't hear it right or I misunderstood, whatever the case may be. The initial filing of the complaint of discrimination was filed in October, not August. I had said it was filed in August. So I had made a mistake, it was filed in October. Everything else that I had summarized was correct, with the exception of the initial filing date, which was October. Okay? This is ongoing litigation, so what we can say is very, very limited without opening up the floodgates to getting ourselves in trouble, because there's a lot of different variables going on with this case. So that's why I timed this out, because I know that Alex would not intentionally say something that could put us into trouble. So I just wanted to make sure, and it was my mistake. So I will call myself out. Thank you for bringing it to my attention so we can correct the record. All right, so public forum. Going once, going twice.
Somebody came up to me just a minute ago and was asking about our vehicle that we're trying to replace, and they questioned why we buy a vehicle versus leasing a vehicle. So I figured I'd just throw that out there and see what the answer was for her.
Off the cuff, I would think it would be cost effective to purchase than to lease, because lease is a monthly payment, but that's what I would have to lease it.
I'd have to look at what the gap accounting says for how we can accumulate a lease versus a straight out payment.
That's kind of what I said, since we're a nonprofit and
Right.
involved in all that stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd be worried about is the damage to the vehicle, and, around here, it's gonna be something on there.
Now, keep in mind, this is going to be used by the architectural to possibly write up people for violations, and people get a little hostile, so the vehicle could be damaged.
Yeah, if they're throwing stuff in the back, it could get damaged.
Hi.
79 at 6989 Summit. As I was driving down Sunrise, the county mowed roadway. And we have so much litter on that street that it's really, really bad. So I'm going to call or send an email to the county and see if we can get the prisoners to come out and pick up the litter.
You can also have a community work day and
When is
pick
it?
up trash. No, I said we could.
No,
And
but
I was
so-
asked if maybe the board could spearhead that.
Nobody showed
As
up.
much as I would love to, there's just a lot that we're doing right now, and so I have no problems showing up to help pick up trash, but as far as coordinating it, that's something that I would have to defer to someone else.
I think the community cleanup day should be like October.
Are you going to do it in the middle of summer?
No, not in August.
It could be at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I hate August.
Dog days of summer.
Yes, but anyway, I just wanted you to know.
Well, maybe, that sounds like a good job for our vice president to contact Steve Furman in Roads and Bridges and see if maybe we can't get some prisoners out there to clean up. What do you think?
Yay.
We brought that come up in the past, and a lot of people said they didn't want them prisoners in the
Oh,
neighborhood.
come on.
All I'm saying, I didn't say that. I said that in the past, it has come up at meetings, and I remember people hitting the ceiling saying, I don't want them in the neighborhood.
Well, I'm just sorry. But, every time I send an email, I know exactly who to send it to. She sends the prisoners out, and they pick it up.
Who is it that you sent an email to?
I don't know her name right off. I think it's something like Susan Perkins. Hey, I can send it to you.
Send me the email address and I'll send her an email to ask if we can get some crews out here to clean up the.
And generally, I include Edgewood and also include Coral Street.
Okay.
I mean, really, I can't imagine the residents complaining about this, considering we have so many incidents in Holiday City. I don't know why they would complain.
But also, neighbors, neighbors can pick a street, they can take their house and like, for example, Kelly and I live on Olympia Street, so if Kelly still likes me after the meeting, we could get together and walk on Olympia Street. So, we could do it that way, each person could take, just a small section of their street and walk down it as
And
well.
I did that. I did a spreadsheet. And I think I had 4 or 5 people volunteer for a street. And, it just looks so trashy, my goodness.
It does, because you have, when the grass grows, you can't see it, and they cut it, and of course, whatever
Yeah.
trash is there gets cut up, and, so it does. Yes.
The prisoners came out twice to my house to do the ditch after the flood, and they've been all over this neighborhood, and they did a great job.
Yes, and they are good. It gets them out of jail and gives them something to do.
That's so thoughtful of you.
What?
It's so thoughtful of you, thinking about getting them out of jail.
I'm sure they thank me every time.
I'm sure they do, Sammy.
Hi, I'm Dawn Griffith, 6648 Castlewood Street. Just, hi. I have a neighbor, I mean, she doesn't even say, but Patricia back there, I've seen her go out on many streets on her own time. She doesn't even broadcast it. And she picks up so much. So I just wanted to recognize her because I see her all over the neighborhood and she doesn't tell anybody. But I came up here on number 9 on D for the withdrawal of the petition for the arbitration. And perhaps I'm reading it wrong, but if you went ahead and did this, our cost would be nothing. If we could just go ahead with this and no lawyers be involved and just withdraw this arbitration, then we'd have no cost. It's our homeowners association that will suffer if this arbitration goes forward. So if you really love the community and you don't want to cost the subdivision or the homeowners association any more legal costs that you already have, Ms. Crawford, I think it would be a wonderful idea and very generous on your part to go ahead and let this withdrawal of the petition for arbitration go forward. And just start from there and have a fresh, clean slate and no more expense legally, if that's why I'm reading it right. So if it is withdrawn, we don't have any lawyers, there's no more money, and we can just have a fresh, clean start for our community and not have any more expenses on the homeowners association. That's all I want to say.
Well, we do need to make sure now, the chapter 61B50 are the rules and procedures governing recall arbitration. So where it is right now is with the DBPR, was it D to B transposed. So we need to make sure, although I do think that this falls, that our recall falls under this because it is for recall arbitration, we need to make sure that that is indeed the case.
And
before we vote on this issue.
She would be so gracious if she had no objection and she would just let it go through.
But she has to do what she thinks is best.
I know.
And just as each of us have to do what we think is best.
But it would be wonderful not to cost the association any more money. And that seemed like that would be a good answer. Thank you.
Beth Walter, 1948 Resort Street. I agree that we should get prisoners working in here. However, one thing you might want to do is make sure the community knows that they're going to be out. That was part of the problem before, is some of the homeowners weren't aware that they were going to be out cleaning, so they had complaints.
I would just like to ask for communication from the association. I get communication telling me the steam room's going to be closed. I get communication telling me that there's a new general manager's newsletter. I would like to see communication when there's going to be board meetings, when there's going to be special meetings. I never get an email for any of that stuff, and I think most people that have email would like to get that glass.
And that's something that we've discussed, and we're definitely trying to remedy that. Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else? Okay, it is 8:20 and this meeting is adjourned until Thursday.